Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is me reviewing the plugin Rapid, made by, I forget who, Parawave Audio Design. Yeah. These guys were kind enough to give me one of these for free. Just saying. I was not paid for this review, but they did give me one of these for free. So, let's talk about this plugin. So when they first approached me to look at this thing, I looked at it. I went and looked at some videos, and I wasn't totally inspired by it, and like really because the UI didn't really sit well with me. It just doesn't speak to me at all. Honestly, it's not a super objective thing to talk about, but it just didn't, and for whatever reason. But when I started to actually look at what it could do and then how well loaded it is, I was actually pretty impressed by this thing. It actually speaks to me in a very personal way. This is because this caters to a particular desire I have, which is a little irrational, which is that I like to do as much as I can with just one thing. Even though there's all kinds of crazy cool things you can do with different kinds of layering and different amounts of like external processing and separates and splits and all that stuff, I really just like to handle as much as I can get out of just one thing. And it's just like, I don't really know why I like that, but I do. And this is great for that because it is jam-packed full of stuff. And let's talk about all the stuff it's jam-full-packed with. It's got your typical looking 3 oscillators, a filter, and some effects kind of thing going on. The oscillators themselves are really freaking cool. Their basic types are all, pretty, great. But the cool thing about it is that along with being oscillators that you can pick and choose different kinds, a whole bunch of them, and in fact, I'm pretty sure all of them are wavetables. And they have a huge library of wavetables. And not only do they have wavetables, which are also pretty great. That sounds like something I made once. Oh, I found one that was really amazing. Realistic phase sax. I have a lot of really cool stuff in here. Generic lines, what are these? Ooh. But anyway, not only do they have wavetables, they also have multi-samples, like straight up, like sample library things. And this is where this gets to be a little bit interesting because it fills a role inside one synth, and not only being a synth, deal, but also a little bit of a realistic layers in there too, because there's not just like that kind of thing, but there's also there's full-on pianos, Rhodes, bells, organs, also synth stuff. Like they also they have recorded basses and pads and stuff. Which can be cool. And guitars. Heaven flute. So like that's pretty cool to have in a single package. Even if like the sounds themselves I don't think are like world-class super competitive great things that can compete with like East West or whatever, it's still a hell of a lot more than I expected out of a synth like this. And that's pretty cool. But let's talk about the whole idea of the whole layering idea. Every one of these in these oscillators, there's 3 of them, so that's kind of a lot. Every one of them can have up to 8 voices of unison with typical unison type controls. You can change the pitches where you want. This is where you can link to either the pitch or not. So you can do like some of those libraries with or without pitch. Can be good. Balance of volume, straightforward, and then built-in effects types. And these effects types are neat. They're pretty common things you'd expect. We have distortion, we have PM, also known as FM, like you'd find in the massive modulation thing, ring modulation, a PWM, chaos phase, which is kind of blurs the chaos of everything, and of course noise. And then they have like whatever parameters you want to have for those effects out there. But for particular wavetables, like the more regular ones, we have actually more options where we get hard sync and phase bend. Hard sync is what you expect it is. It's the same kind of syncing effect you get inside massive and other things. And phase bend is a lot like what the bend plus minus does. Actually, I guess upon looking at that, it's a little bit more like the asymmetrical effect inside Serum. Well, much like Serum, also, you can actually look at the waveform the same way with the same sort of 3-dimensional wavetable check or just a 2D check. Except the 2D check in here doesn't actually show you the morphing of the waveform while the oscilloscope on the output does. And so that's what one oscillator is. There's 3 of them. And you can control the various parameters in here as you would also in plugins like SeamlessR. And here we have like the regular like kind of macros you can route into stuff that you can route into stuff. Bam. And then when you do that, a routing appears. And this routing is where you set the positions and the amounts and that kind of thing. And you can also set them from here. You can actually just pick straight up, of all the things that are here and to all the things that they're going to go into, and they show up here. There's a total of 32 routings. So that's pretty much how that works. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure there's not any interface to be doing it like manually like you would be doing in the aforementioned plugins that have similar architecture. But honestly, this isn't that bad. It's a little bit weird, but I just kind of forget about it after a while. Then we have ourselves a filter, straight up filter. It's got straight up filterings. It's got a couple of cool filters, but most of them are just regular, just good old filters. Notches, multi-notches, and peaks, multi-peaks, and that kind of just good old filteries and combs. Like you got all the filters you want to be filtered. It's all pretty good stuff. You have the envelope control over here, and a key file. The envelope is found on the top page here. We have the filter modifier, the tech, decay, and sustain release, and that kind of thing. What am I talking about? And by that, I don't mean that at all. What I just said, it actually is from the envelope that's up here. Never mind about that. And then it also has a key following option that you can turn on. There's also insert-based effects, which are pretty, straight up stuff. Bit crushers, fuzzers, overdrives, to just generally distortion, and some filter types if you want to have just a in-series filter. You might be thinking, oh, bummer, there's only really 2 filters and they're stuck in series, and so we can't have parallel filtering. And while that's true, you'll find out later why that doesn't really matter much. I guess unless in certain particular extreme situations, but most of the time with rather conservative views, you can get away with it. And down here in the oscilloscope section, we also have 4 independent envelopes that can be routed whatever and done with whatever with 4 independent LFOs, which have rather kind of cool controls. Not only do we have regular like levels and rates and whatever, we have crossfades and delays of action, plus different types of things like will it retrigger, will it sync the BPM, mono amp, global shared LFO, that's cool, and then bipolar, unipolar modes. And then there's also that you can have different shapes of LFO that you can crossfade between. And there's a lot of shapes. So you can get some interesting motion that you can sort of move through and crossfade behind. Like random holds. That's cool. So like these LFOs are top stuff. And there's 4 of them. There's also straight up 4 sequencers. And they have just the whole shape menu is just right there. You can just put them in there and then that's the end of it. Again, with the same sort of controls there. 1/12th grid. Aha, semitone modulation is clever. So that's cool. It's either 16 or 12, so you can do it snaps to pitches or not. Which I'm pretty sure you can see that because I'm pretty sure I selected the correct thing on the thing to show it to you for the thing. There's also an arpeggiator, which has an interesting interface. And I haven't really used it much, but it's an arpeggiator. It'll do what it needs to do. And then here's the good old visualizer. Nope, doesn't appear to be. Oh, there's the scale and the speed over here that you can use to sort of zoom in and out of it. And this is also where you can set up things like MIDI channels and keying. Not really totally sure what this is. I probably should have read the manual about this. Key filter. It kind of sounds like it has a kind of key limit, which is interesting. And then the voice limits that you can go all the way up to 32, which honestly, this is per layer. Never mind. Okay, cool. We have this where you set the glide and the monoing and the BPM syncing globally, I guess. And then down here we have the effects, and there's a lot of effects. And they're sort of the things that you'd expect to have, like the reverbs, and phasers and flangers, equalizers, talkers, which is just like a kind of wow effecty kind of thing, and the compressors and sidechains and transgates and that kind of thing. And each of them will have a whole host of presets you can use, and you can have a lot of them, as you can see. And you can get a hell of a lot out of a single one of these layers. And there are 8 of these layers. And this is where this plugin starts to get it starts to pique my interest. Because in and of itself, this is about what you'd expect out of like a pretty average subtractive synthesizer setup, with pretty good wavetable capacity and then rather nice sample inclusion. Like this is all solid stuff, but not really worth it if you've already got these things independently already in your workflow. But where this thing shines, and then it has all of this, and it has 8 layers of it. And not only does it have 8 layers, but you can route in between the layers. And this wasn't totally obvious to me, so I'll show you how this works. Over here we have a 2 master option, so it'll either go straight out of the layer to the master, or if you turn it off and go to the effects, one of the effects is a send. And then this send allows you to send it to any of the other layers with polarity even, which is kind of cool. This means that you can have like very long chains of effects, and this is what I meant when I said that you can have parallel filtering, because you can just turn the filters on these and just turn off the oscillators, and it'll send the audio through them. So you can have very complex routing inside just one of these things, and that's really cool. That's extremely powerful to have all of this right the hell here. So that's what this guy gets going for. That's good. Sort of what I don't like about it. I mentioned the UI, like it kind of gets at me. I should probably talk about the front page first. There's this nice keyboard range modifier. So if I have all the layers on, you can see how it fills up in here, and you can actually set a zone per layer, so you can have a very like full range, specific set of layers of things, which is very nice. There's a global amp modifier, global filter modifiers, and then there's just a straight up compressor in here. There's various sort of presets of how hard it is, and then it's also multi-band. So multi-pass, but it's multi-band, and so you can use that to control dynamics coming out, which is nice. And then of course there's a straight up mixer, which like this is also very nice when we have the interlayer routing that we can use, and then you can have these to create buses and that kind of stuff, which is just really cool and powerful to have in a single whole thing, So that's pretty great. And then a big old preset browser window, and they do have a hell of a lot of presets, and it has some pretty crazy stuff sometimes. Like goddamn. It's like, there's enough samples that you can do that kind of crap with it. That's a lot. Great pianos. Like very, very stable. Like very nice sounding pianos. Like you can absolutely use like just layer on top of stuff. The cinema piano. What does that sound like? The Zimmer piano. What we got? Tracks. What have we here? Let's do the speed shuttle at 160 BPM. I like the sound of that. That's a little much. What's 129 here? Let's try this. Come on, 129, do it. Yeah. Oh, hey, let's check it out. We got credits. Oops, did I miss? That wasn't really what I thought was going to happen. Let's try Transy Pleasure. All right, I'm good with that. So, like I was about to start talking about things that I think that aren't really all that great about this thing. Like I said, the UI kind of gets to me. Like, I don't know if it's the color scheme that just doesn't match with FL, in which case it's not really anyone else's problem, or I don't know what. I think it just reminds me a lot of old like synth maker plugins that people use as demos. But like, I honestly, this is just a big niggle because like, who cares? Like, if the thing does the job, I don't really care about how it looks. because sometimes the modulation is kind of weird. Like if I grab a parameter and start moving it around, like it feels like my mouse will get like unanchored from where it is and then like just drift off it when I don't feel like I'm moving anywhere. This is especially true when I'm messing around with the morph thing. Like I can start if I try to like get an idea of like a rhythmic morph on something. Suddenly it's just like out of its range all of a sudden, and like I can't do what I was wanting to be doing, and it can be kind of awkward. I don't know what's up with that, but it's kind of thing. It seems an awful lot like they've designed this to be an almost Nexus-y kind of thing, where, because if you come in here, you see there's this big old thing that says factory sounds, and there's a library, and like, it seems an awful lot like they're expecting to be more of these in here, and especially because there's a big old button up here that says content. And if you come up in here, we have extension managers, because there's going to be extensions where essentially you get new, new sounds and stuff like that. And the only reason why this is any kind of bummer to me is because I'm used to something like Serum, where you could just get new ones from people and make your own and that kind of thing. And for something that's this powerful with that kind of like layering capacity, I honestly I feel like that's like not cool, you know. Although, given the very solid subtractive nature of it, I honestly wouldn't have cared if this thing only had basic waveforms, but that it went far enough to have all these crazy ass tables. And then granted, there are a lot of tables. It's not like massive where you're limited to however 40 of them there are. But like versus Serum, where there's just thousands of them, 80% of them might be trash, but they're free. Who cares? And so like being locked into a personal garden on that just doesn't sit well with me personally. But I also think that if they just never made any of the content at all, that what they have here is honestly fine. So the future policy of selling DLC for this synth aside, overall this thing is great. It's a great thing. Like I honestly might start using it for more sort of like layer oriented things that are just like, I want to have 1 billion saws today and make a big old pad. I guess I'll use this thing because like it's honest, it'll be easier and more convenient than opening up Patcher and doing it with 7 hummers, because it's just one thing for that like very low level stuff, like lots of saws, lots of one thing or whatever, lots of, again, I mean, there's a bunch of cool tables and stuff, but like I really haven't any of those could you put on before it starts to get a little out of hand. But I'm sure some people will find a way to use just total excess to great use, because that seems to be the name of this thing, is total excess. Although I'm pretty sure it's called rapid because the whole idea is that you can rapidly create big stuff because we have all the things in our plugin. Anyway, if you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. As usual, have a nice day.